See, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those
who think Red Dead Redemption is the only Western-themed game worth playing.
Those who dig
the piles of AA and indie games to see what's worthwhile and run into Desperados 3. Welcome to Ye Olde Entertainment. My name is Alex, and it is my duty, my mission, my purpose in life to help you decide whether that game that you have been thumping for so long is indeed the right game for you or not. And today in the chopping block, we've got Desperados 3. Gatlin cannons given as wedding presents to brides, voodoo witches performing mind-controlled rituals, and talk of the devil breaking and entering into the local bank to rob it blind. All that rolled into a Western-themed real-time strategy game called Desperados 3. But does this over-the-top blend of weirdness deserve the 9s and 10s that have been thrown its way by popular review outlets? Or is it a zero punctuation mess of a game that forces you to use much despised scum-loading mechanics to progress through the game while you pointlessly click on each individual enemy to see their cones of vision because the game cannot be bothered to show them all at once? Or is the truth, as it is often the case, somewhere in between? Let's find out, shall we? As you know, I rate games according to a system of categories that feels relevant to the game at hand. And the game at hand this time is Desperados 3, an isoparametric real-time strategy game that takes place in the good old West. I don't have a video explaining our category system for real-time strategies, so I'll just lazily leave the link for you to download the corresponding spreadsheet in the description below. But I'll spoil the spreadsheet for you regardless. When it comes to real-time strategy games, the most important thing is the gameplay itself. So let's start there. Since you don't spend time talking to characters or deciding which factions to favor or pondering the far-reaching consequences of your actions as you do in RPGs, all there is for you to do is interact with the game's core mechanics. Missions need to be varied, stakes have to be high, and situations need to be diverse. The array of possibilities better be broad in real-time strategy games, or better yet, you should be given a broad assortment of tools for you to forge your own possibilities. And I'm happy to report that Desperados 3 delivers all of this in spades. Some missions require you to kill certain characters, others demand that you retrieve carefully concealed missives with mission-critical information. Others are about survival, and yet some others are about sneaking into a rich man's estate and kidnapping him without anyone being any the wiser. All of these missions can be done in an endless amount of ways, none of which feel pre-scripted in any way. Desperados 3 is designed so that you can go on about the game in ways not even the developers might have anticipated, from dragging corpses to a guard's line of sight to have him or her move from his or her post, to purposefully leaving footprints to have an enemy chase you while your companions wait in ambush, to luring enemies to the area of action of an environmental hazard to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, to using any combination of your companion's skills. You name it, Desperados 3's got you covered. You should be warned though, not everyone is crazy about some of the mechanics.
The enemies all have visibility cones spread wider than your mum's legs when she hears a bottle opener, and you can only see one guard's cone at a time. On top of that, a lot of guards who look like they're staring straight ahead are in fact glancing back and forth like a nervous gazelle at a tennis match, covering an area the size of a conservatively proportioned aircraft hangar. So half the time you'll settle into the nice long slitting a throat animation and only then be informed that someone off screen is looking at you from their table at a delightful Parisian-style street cafe on the surface of Mars.
I'll leave this zero punctuation review in the description area below. I don't agree with this reviewer, but I find his videos absolutely hilarious, and maybe you will too. His main gripe with Desperados 3 is that the game encourages you to quick save and quick load as means to play the game if you want to enjoy its tactical trial and error formula. This reviewer seems to hate this system as it forces you to engage in the much despised scum-saving loading practice, which is considered by some people in the gaming community to be a cheap way to cheat your way out of undesired consequences. But hey, like EA used to say, back in the day when they were decent, if it's in the game, it's in the game. And that's how I play my games anyway, so scum loading doesn't bother me one bit. Hell, I'm even thankful that quick loading very much lives up to its name and takes virtually no time to load a saved game. Another thing that naysayers complain about is that you can never account for every guard in the premise, as you can only see 1 cone of vision at a time, and some guards can see you from very, very far away. For me, this was part of the challenge and added a healthy amount of fun to the whole deal. Granted, there were some situations that were so tight, and you're looking at one of the worst of them right now, that made the passage be more about precision and split-second timing than about tactical planning, and that's definitely not what I came for. Thankfully, there were only 4 or 5 such situations in the whole game. Also, the game has side challenges that you definitely don't want to miss. For me, these challenges is where Desperados 3 truly shines.
Something unexplainable has happened in New Orleans tonight. 3 murders were committed, all exactly when the clock struck 6. The first victim, a captain who wanted to escape his fate. His rusty vessel the only thing that kept him afloat. Beneath him, the blackness of the river, and inside him, an even darker blackness. The second victim, a lonely person meeting a lonely death, surrounded by his only friends, cackling, picking litter from the floor, picking blood from his veins, picking meat from his innards. The third victim, an honorable man, slaughtered and left among the filth. An unjust end, for he gave hope and comfort to those who needed it most. Examine the crime scenes, find out who did this, and banish them from this earth.
They're challenging, puzzly, and they demand that you crank up your tactical assessment talents to the 11th level. The later ones are even better than the main story missions themselves, and they force limitations on you that'll have you scratching your head, but also clenching your fist in victory when you finally figure out what the whole deal is about.
Today you will put those words to the test. I've taken away all your weapons, except for your guns. You must kill every single guard in this place.
There's also a 3-piece DLC called Money for the Vulture, which features more of the same stuff, or rather, slightly better of the same. In addition to 3 new missions that tell a whole new story, the first piece also includes a bunch of new challenges. So for $4.99 a piece, I'd say it's a worthwhile deal. For me, Desperados 3 combines sandbox gameplay with scripted mission goals in just the right measure, adding virtually endless replay value to the experience while giving you purpose the whole way through. And this all makes Desperados 3 one of the most fun games to play in recent memory. Level design. Real-time strategy games can get really boring really fast if the locations aren't diverse enough, or if they feel detached from the gameplay. We expect the settings of our missions to be varied. We want jungles and forests. We want man-made settings like cities and towns. We want these cities and towns to be different in every mission. In Desperados 3, we get all of that and then some. From train stations to riverbeds and swamps, to giant mansions to godforsaken towns, this game has it all. And thankfully, it's not all for the cosmetics. Each mission takes place in a complex layout that adds yet another dimension to the gameplay. There's this mission at the Mississippi River in which you can swim around to get to places undetected, as you try to rescue your friends and escape your predicament. The train station at Eagle Falls is accessed by a narrow bridge that greatly limits your range of action, forcing you to be creative with what little you have. The whorehouse in New Orleans is a confined space where there are civilians that you must take care not to kill while you retrieve a missive from some mission target. And these are just a few examples. If I had anything bad to say about the level design in Desperados 3, I'd say I kinda missed the possibility to zoom out a little bit more to get a better view of the locations, and that sometimes I didn't quite understand why my characters seemed to be exposed when they were clearly well concealed behind a wall. Also, since this game offers an isoparametric perspective, it sometimes happened to me that I clicked somewhere and my character went in a completely unexpected direction because it turned out that some wall or floor was interfering with my click. But hey, this is expected in games of this nature, and thankfully, it didn't happen too often. The 3 DLCs shine with their own light. I think the level design in the downloadable content is even more interesting and better integrated into the gameplay. All the more reason to give those a shot as well. In short, the locations in Desperados 3 are designed as part of the game, rather than as a setting in which the game takes place, and that speaks volumes of the game's design. Overall, it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close. Squad members and talents. I don't know if I'd call my companions in Desperados 3 squad members. This is a term that feels as though it's reserved for military or sci-fi stuff, but regardless of what you call them, your companions and their talents in Desperados 3 are nothing short of brilliant. Talents are not only awesome as standalone skills, but they also work phenomenally well together, like Hector's whistle and bear trap, or Isabel's connect and kitty abilities. On top of that, there are some fantastic cross-character synergies that'll make you feel like the master tactician you are, you little devil. Really, kudos to whomever designed these characters and their talents. The skills are balanced, fun, varied, and some of them even embody this game's lighthearted nature and humor, like Bianca, a giant bear trap that can be placed on the ground that no one seems to ever notice, and that's capable of killing a person with a single snap.
Seriously, what's the deal with the giant bear trap?
Bianca, the love of my life.
You gave that thing a name?
You hear that, Bianca? He's jealous.
Or Dr. McCoy's bag that lures people to its location and springs a cloud of toxic gas when opened. You want to know the meaning of satisfaction? Just use Dr. McCoy's bag to lure an enemy, and once he's in range, lure him even farther with Hector's whistle. And when he's out of sight of his companions, have Cooper throw a knife to his throat. That's satisfaction. The icing on the cake here has nothing to do with your companion's skills, but with their personalities. Your companions complement each other masterfully skill-wise, but the secret ingredient that makes your ragtime band of adventurers feel so right is the melting pot of diverse personalities and motivations. Though this has more to do with the writing than the gameplay per se, it will keep you from putting down your controller and giving the game a rest, much like the TV series that won't let you watch just the one episode you originally intended. In short, squad members and talents surpassed my every expectation, and if I could give them a 20 out of 10, I would. Lore and story. Though this is not what you pay the price of the admission for in real-time strategy games, and though you can even somewhat forgive it for being sucky if that is the case, it's always better to have a good reason that feels real, relevant, and even urgent for you to do whatever it is you're doing. Desperados 3 achieved this, and something much more important too. It made this old gamer feel young again. I've always wondered if the process of becoming less and less excited over the years for the latest film of my favorite franchise, or for new entertainment products as a whole, has to do with me growing out of childlike excitement, or if it is the consequence of new products being, well, shittier and shittier. Maybe it's a combination of both? Maybe the things that I enjoyed were made for people who are no longer young and at the time in which we were all more naive as a whole as an audience? Nah, things have definitely become shittier, and that's it. Desperados 3 stands as proof of this. Not for being shitty, but because playing this game lit the long extinguished flame of thrill once again. Desperados 3 reminded me of a time when I was a child on the edge of my seat watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, or The Empire Strikes Back, or Back to the Future. Desperados 3 is firing on all engines all the time. Characters might be a tad cheesy and over the top, but in a way that's relatable and fun. Your suspension of disbelief is challenged for sure, but it stays on the side of unbridled fun at all times, without becoming boring or ever giving you the feeling that your characters are invincible. Hell, there's even a part in which you can have the would-be bride firing a Gatlin gun at the bad guys if you wish.
But, why does it have a pink ribbon?
It's a wedding present. Don't ask.
Your ragtime band of adventurers is colorful and diverse in all the right ways. They're not there to tick boxes, but because they need to be. Some need to collect bounties, some need to do it because this helps their cause too, some do it out of guilt, and some others out of gratitude. You have the archetypical hero, the greedy guy whose heart you expect to change by the end of the game, not unlike Han Solo himself, and the competent, ruthless, slow-walking villain who feels larger than life at all times. And they all tangle, not because the plot needs them to, but because they need to. Hell, there's just too many nods to classic westerns.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. Someone told me that a long time ago. His name always slips my mind.
Fun party banter.
Ooh, sunshine. You didn't tell me you could shoot like that.
I prefer to demonstrate.
And moments of the story that put a smile on my face.
I had a feeling you'd be lost without me. As usual, I was right.
You know what? I'm gonna give you that one, sunshine.
There's this one tiny thing that broke my heart though, and that's that there is no falling action after the climax. The game's final sequence is challenging, original, and satisfying to play, and the cutscene that ensues is badass. But I got to care so much about the characters that I kind of missed a succession of stills, with text or perhaps a narration RPG style, to tell me about what happened with the band after the final fight. It was heartwarming though to see the guys once again together in the DLC. So yeah, they broke my heart, but I'm the forgiving type, so I'll take that extra content as closure and leave it at that. Make no mistake about it, there's no heightened lesson to be reaped from the story in Desperados 3, nor some earth-shattering introspective truth, just a purely solid, fresh, and satisfying story with characters that go from relatable to memorable. The story is grounded because we have to buy into it, but doesn't mind going over the top when it needs to. I really wasn't expecting anything from the story when I got Desperados 3, and I ended having the time of my life with it. Overall, while not perfect, it's worth way, way more than the price of the admission. sound effects, and mix.
Let's see.
Not your lucky day, is it?
Down she goes.
Holy hell!
There's nothing too particularly awe-inspiring here except the attention to detail. While none of the sounds will blow you away, there's an adequate sound for everything in Desperados 3, and it's nonchalantly mixed into a thick landscape that keeps you appraised of what's going on at all times. From the sounds of the trap being laid, to the thump of the doctor's bag as it hits the ground, to Kate's bottle of perfume breaking upon impact and its contents being released, to the rumor of the crowded city in New Orleans, it's all there. The sounds are also very well mixed, but if I had to be nitpicky about it, I'd say that I wish the music and the voices had been panned a little bit more, to give a little bit more room to the rest of the sound. Overall, though not spectacular, it more than gets the job done. Music. This is quite simply one of my favorite soundtracks in recent memory. From the title track, to the music that starts playing when you fuck up and even makes you want to fuck up at times, to the music that plays in the background for every mission, this is as delightfully westerny as you might expect. And if that's not enough, there's this mission that takes place at a party that's being held at a rich man's estate, in which a guest musician plays acoustic versions of the soundtrack of every mission you've played up until that point. He does so in a way that's both hilarious and unexpectedly meta, as he summarizes your past exploits and adventures as he gives a short description of the next song he's about to play.
I see you like that last one. Well, if you've ever
Enjoy
been
the music.
to New Orleans,
all the
this
fashion
one's
around
gonna
here.
remind you of that.
Coming through.
Place.
Making a move.
Believe me, I have spared no
The music also mirrors the spirit of the gameplay and the story. Desperados 3 is a game that expects you to believe that everything that happens in the game is something that could have happened in the Old West, while throwing voodoo rituals and exploding minecarts filled with gunpowder at you in awe-inspiring over-the-topness. In similar fashion, the music in Desperados 3 stays on the 1800s Midwestern America side of things for the most part, but does not shy away from showing its claws with an electric guitar note every once in a while when the little extra oomph is needed.
I wonder what's in here.
Something tells me you ain't here punching tickets.
Nothing escaped the developers of Desperados 3. They even tipped their hats in tribute to Master Ennio Morricone's work in the final sequence of the game. A little musical Easter egg for fans of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the westerns of old, which we're not going to play in the interest of not spoiling things for you. I think you already saw it coming, but I'll tell you anyways. The music in Desperados 3 is a solid 10 out of 10. Voice acting.
Well,
So what's going on here?
we're looking for Isabel's friend. Wanna join?
I won't hold it against you if you decline.
Yeah, like I said, I don't enjoy owing favors. To be clear, we find your Wayne, that makes us even.
Try it lighten up, sunshine. You in New Orleans.
Voice acting may not be as important in a real-time strategy game as it is in an RPG, but that didn't stop the guys at Mimimi, which is the best name ever for a developer by the way, from putting together a fantastic cast of characters, giving them great lines, and providing them with the best voice acting this title could have hoped for. As it has been mentioned before, the characters are one of the main reasons why Desperados 3 is so enjoyable. Not only do they have complex and fun personalities and believable predicaments, but they're also given some of the most exquisite party banter moments and dialogue lines in recent memory. To top this off, they're also given great voice acting.
Good morning, Hector.
Good morning, Miss.
That was one hell of a night.
Actually, I don't even remember how I got here. Or how we met.
You really don't remember anything, do you? I'm Rosie, the sheriff's wife.
I really gotta find my friends now. Bye. Oh, hey. Okay.
Speaking of which, what does Bianca have to say about your new friend?
Shush, I haven't told her yet. Still waiting for the right moment.
Ooh, gotcha.
Oddly enough, the main character John Cooper is the least interesting of the bunch, but he more than gets the job done. Kate, Hector, and Isabel are also excellent, but it's Todd Haberkorn as Dr. McCoy who steals the show here.
I'd say you owe me one. Hey now, are you kidding me?
I'd say we're even now. Now I suggest you return to your wagon. I'll handle things from here.
Well, like you handled those two?
Listen, Mr.
Cooper.
Mr. Cooper, I've been hired to make sure this train gets to Flagstone. I'd appreciate it if you don't get in my way.
Well, now, Mr.
McCoy. Dr. McCoy.
For me, his was the best voice acting performance in 2020. McCoy is a combination of Han Solo, Angel Eyes, and Dr. King Schultz all rolled into one, and he has the perfect voice to match. But it's not only your companions who are spot on in Desperados 3. Marshall Wayne, Rosie, Major Higgins, and the rest of the gang are also solid players. The main antagonist, Frank, dwarfs them all, however. He's menacing, ruthless, and has the slow, calculating demeanor of someone who's lived past his time and has no fear of what's to come. And the voice acting is on par with all of that.
Marshal Wayne. I see you're trespassing on private property. Last I recall, you need a warrant for that. I don't need a warrant for crooks like you, Frank. Just come with us quietly. I'd prefer we settle this like in the good old days. Too bad this is not how it's done anymore. I think that's the leash around your neck doing the talking. Is that right?
The game's not without its minor slip-ups here and there, though. Some secondary characters sound a little too over the top. Uncle Ian and Vincent DeWitt could have been better, and the protagonist, though not bad at all, is outshined by almost everyone else. Overall, this is great stuff, and yet again, something I didn't quite expect. Graphics. Listen, this game is an isoparametric game made with a Unity engine. The graphics are as good as you can expect from a project of this nature. In the arts department, the game is solid. The deluxe edition ships with the game's original art book. I'd say the art we got in the final product pretty much nailed the concepts. Nothing looks out of place here. The clothes, the building, and the rest of the landscape looks cohesive and believable. The interface is seamlessly integrated into the package, and there's great attention to detail, like the little flames on top of the portraits of your top performers during the replay session. The cities look lived in and alive, and that all adds to the immersion. The color palette is predominantly brown, but that's to be expected from a Western-themed game that takes place in Midwestern America. I also think that the characters' clothes perfectly match their history, their place of origin, and their occupations. This is no award winner for sure, but it's well beyond being merely competent. Secondary mechanics. In addition to the game's core mechanics, there are a few treats that you may enjoy. At the end of every mission, you get to see a map on top of which your own progress through the mission is replayed. I totally love this recap of events and made me want to play every mission at least once again. I'm a sucker for stats, and I would have loved if the final screen of the recap had also shown how many deaths were achieved through combinations of skills, and not just the raw amount of times the skills were used. I know it may be a little bit too much to ask, but man, they were so close to hitting just the right spot. There's also achievements in this game, and I'm also a sucker for those. There are 8 achievements per mission in Desperados 3. Cleverly enough, the game does not reveal what those achievements are until the mission is completed for the first time. I played the entire main campaign 3 times just to complete some of these achievements. Admittedly, trying to complete those achievements added an interesting layer of challenge and flavor to the missions. I just wish they had been a little bit more creative with the achievements. Many of them are speedruns, which I hate, and some others ask you to renounce the most fun aspect of the game, which is using your companion's skills. Why do you want me not to use a disguise? Why can't I snipe baddies with Dr. McCoy's buntline? I mean, sure, that forces you to think of completely different ways to complete the missions, but there are some notorious wasted opportunities here. For example, in the mission named The Queen's Nest, your companions split into groups of 2. Cooper and McCoy on one side of the map, and Hector and Isabel on the other. I found my fun in trying to complete the whole mission using only one of the groups. I think there should have been an achievement for killing every enemy using only Cooper and McCoy, and another for using only Isabel and Hector. Just saying. In this same mission, for example, you're asked to hide all the bodies to unlock the corresponding achievement. I wish there had been more achievements like this, and less speedruns and don't use this skill-based achievements. Also, it wouldn't have hurt if there had been achievements for the challenges, and not just the main story missions. Also, additional challenges are super cool, but if some of them had been tied into the main story somehow, as side missions maybe, that would have been the icing on the cake. Nitpicks aside, most of which are just personal taste feature requests, overall I think secondary mechanics are pretty good. Performance and stability. This is a category in which I include some questionable design decisions, and there are a couple of those here. For example, you can pause the game in order to issue commands to your companions. This is crucial to get through some of the tightest parts in some of the missions, but I just couldn't understand why moving your character to a certain spot was not executed automatically after resuming the game. I found this mildly annoying, and I never understood the justification behind it. During my 3rd playthrough, upon completing the Eagle Falls mission, the loading screen for the cinematic just froze, and I couldn't complete the mission. Also, one of my characters got stuck during the mission at Casa de Vit after pushing over a statue, thus forcing me to reload a previous save. Something similar happened on my 2nd playthrough during one of the early missions. After pushing down a wall while I was trying to fake an accident, my character once again got stuck. This 2nd time, however, I had already completed one of the most challenging and fun achievements in the game, and I wasn't about to let the bug rob me of my glory, so I found a way to use the game's sandbox mechanics to break the bug, and that process turned out to be the most fun episode I ever had with the game, so it was a happy accident in the end. I didn't experience any crashes or dramatic frame rate drops, and apart from the 2 or 3 bugs that I mentioned, performance was mostly solid. I think you can already tell my opinion of Desperados 3, but I can't end this review without expressing how deeply refreshing and satisfying the experience turned out to be. It's sad that, in this day and age, one has to be thankful for story-based games that are not preachy, patronizing, and that don't try to sell you the developer's view of the world. A view of the world also filled with empathy and concern for this or that group that has been marginalized until these paladins of justice took it upon themselves to include them in their games and stories. Characters and events are what they need to be in Desperados 3. The story does not depict all men as evil or incompetent, nor all women as heroic and perfect. Characters are flawed and painted in realistic shades of gray. Women are competent, but don't have masculine, gruff voices or imposing behaviors and attitudes. They are strong because they are confident and resourceful, not like these other games, in which they are hulking bulks of muscle because developers needed to make them literally physically strong, lest the dumbass audience miss the point. Women in Desperados 3 can be compassionate and agreeable without renouncing their purpose or their ambitions. They were saved by the men in the party when the story went that way, but they also saved the men from time to time, called the protagonist out on his bullshit, and one of them even threatened to kill him the one time he did something that struck her as terribly dishonorable. As a result, almost every checkbox of the superficial diversity list is ticked in Desperados 3 without any of it feeling forced, and especially without any of it getting in the way of the story or the fun. Desperados 3 is a beacon of hope in modern-day entertainment for many reasons, and one can only wish there's more like it to come in the near future. So this is our final score for Desperados 3. Carrick from ACG and Fextra Live seemed to enjoy Desperados 3 as well, and I'll leave the reviews in the description section below. But if you want to check out a review by someone who wasn't as thrilled, I'll also leave the Zero Punctuation review link in the description section. If you wish to acquire the game, we very strongly recommend that you get the 3 DLC missions too. We'll leave the link for both Steam and Good Old Games in the description below. And that's all I've got for you today. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thank you for watching all the way up until now, If you like what you're seeing in this channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell to avoid the usual YouTube shenanigans. Share the video, but most importantly, never stop gaming, but don't let gaming get in the way of your hopes and dreams. Bye everyone.